I am an alcoholic.
I am an alcoholic.
I am an alcoholic.
I am an alcoholic.
I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, I'm Ricky, and I am an alcoholic.
I am an alcoholic.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joseph, and I'm an alcoholic. Welcome to this episode of Many Paths to Recovery. It's my pleasure to be your host. With me is Raymond. This is his podcast, and he has graciously volunteered to take his turn in the hot seat and share his experience, strength, and hope with us. How you doing, Raymond?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Welcome to the 1 year club. We finally get to wiggle our ears at the end of the Oh My God meetings.
Yeah, it's great to be goofy at the end of those meetings and wiggle my ears. That's get to be part of the wiggly ear club. Tried wiggling my cat's ears and he gets mad.
So you were telling me earlier about painting and how it's been affecting your life lately. If you could share with me a little bit, I'd love to know how painting has helped you in your journey on recovery.
Well, painting has been recently kind of a new thing for me. It's I started doing 3D printing and printing like little models and stuff like that. Because I wanted to start making like little tokens for guests and stuff like this for the show. Just like a little memento or something like that. And as usual, the alcoholic mind kicks in and I started finding other cool things to print. Then I'm like, okay, now I want to paint these. Then I ended up getting into buying like all this. It went into a whole manic episode. You could see the alcoholic mind kicking in with this, but it's more of doing productive things for me now instead of sitting and mauling and stewing in my thoughts or just sinking into a video game or just watching TV. It's doing something productive and creative. And because I've been trying to do creative things within my recovery, but it's also been beneficial with my kids because they're interested in this now. So I've been making extra things to paint, and from the printer, I'll have it ready, and we all sit down and we paint together. And instead of just lounging around, we're spending time together and being creative, and that's been like a big thing, especially leading up to this year and, you know, moving forward.
That's amazing, man. You know, I agree with you that having something that's our own, that's productive, that gives ourselves a feeling of accomplishment and value, so huge. You know, for me, it's writing science fiction. I don't know if I'll ever be published, and it doesn't matter. It makes me happy. That's wonderful that you get to share it with your kids too.
Yeah. I'm making new memories with them now. Leading up to this, it wasn't all apples and oranges or I don't even know how to do it. Like unicorns and rainbows, you know, it's, they're still young to where it's like, you know, I have a chance to make good memories with them now, and it's not drunk old dad sleeping on the floor or acting the way he's acting or whatever. So it's all about making new memories and being a better parent now.
How old are your kids?
8 and 9.
All
Wait,
right.
no, 9 and 5. Why did I say 8 and 9? I'm going to get in trouble because I forgot how old my kids are.
I forget how old I am, my friend. So, yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, 9 and 5. And they are every bit of piss and vinegar, I guess. They're full of piss and vinegar. Nah, they're good kids though. I mean, they're kind-hearted, but they're rotten to me. So it's payback.
So, Raymond, if you wouldn't mind, share a little bit of your journey, man. What made you decide to come to AA and find out what it was all about?
What made me come to AA and find out what it's all about? Well, it wasn't on my own fruition. And at the beginning of coming to AA, I've gotten to a point in my life to where apparently I couldn't control my drinking. It was overcoming me personally, and I guess it was affecting everyone else around me, and I didn't know it. And last year, November 28th, I took my last drink. And I quit drinking, but and I learned this after the fact, I was still acting the way I've always acted, which led up to some of the excuses I said I would, the excuses to drink. And it's pretty much, this person's done me wrong, this person's done this, and everything I say, all the self-centered thinking and insecure stuff, low self-esteem. And, I thought I was doing fine because I wasn't drinking. I was isolating a lot, isolating myself farther away from my family. And it was close to 60 days. I think it was right at 60 days, maybe, or 45 days. It's kind of all born together now. And, I just, this day, I'm like, called my wife and I'm like, hey, I'm trying to figure out some time to take off, spend with you and kids and all that. And I'm starting to have some more clear, sober thoughts and like, hey, I've been kind of neglectful and all this. And she's like, why? I go, what do you mean why? I'm like, okay, this is odd. And I got home from work that night, and my kids weren't home. And it was just my wife there, and I'm like, where's the kids at? They're not here. What do you mean they're not here? And then that night, she told me she wanted a divorce. And at that point, it felt like, I've always thought about when people committed suicide or killed themselves over another person or over a relationship. I always thought, I was like, well, that's stupid. But at that point, I felt like my whole world collapsed because I thought I was doing everything right. And, I plan on spending the rest of my life with her. and I couldn't imagine being away from my kids, which I don't, in all reality, you know, you don't really, I wasn't going to like lose my kids. They weren't being taken away from me at the time, but it just felt shitty. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I just, that moment right there, it just felt like my whole world crumbled in. Because I guess when you're becoming sober, your brain's reprogramming itself and doing all this crazy shit. And it like started putting me in, I couldn't sleep. I wasn't thinking straight. And I was a hot mess, to sum it up easily. And I made some phone calls that night. I'm glad I did. And I just kept moving on and just trying to function and go to work. And all my thoughts was just what happened that night. Why? What did I do? I quit drinking. What did I do? And all the manipulation, you know, was still there. The behaviors were still there. And at the time, I just thought you go to AA to quit drinking. And I was like, well, I don't need AA or anything like that. I never thought anything like that. So anyways, I'm like, I end up calling a counselor, a therapist, whatever you want to call it. And I'm just trying to figure out how do I save my marriage from being a shitty husband for so long. So I started taking the advice of a counselor and just, you know, tried to start changing some of my behaviors there and all that, and still making, I don't know if they were empty promises or thoughts like that, to just, you know, get her to say this isn't, she didn't want a divorce. So anyways, to move forward, I ended up asking her to just write out everything that she needed me to do and what I was doing wrong and what I could do to fix myself. Well, she did the total opposite. And basically, it was, to sum it up, it was all about the way I manipulate. I manipulated her, my behaviors, the stuff I've said in the past, the stuff I've done in the past, and my resistance to not go to AA. Because she didn't believe I could stay sober by myself. You know, she's been around. She's been around it long enough. She knows how alcoholics are, and didn't help the cause that she was. She's in the medical field, you know, but her being around it her whole life and being in the medical field and all this, you know, at time I'm just like, well, you're just a fucking know-it-all and da-da-da-da-da, and I'm like trying not to go off and all this. I'm trying to win my wife back, even though at this time she's told me she hates me and all this other stuff, and just all this stuff just to you know, keep me down after I took the punch and fell. But I'm not that kind of person, you know. Regardless of whatever, I don't stay down once I get hit. I get up and I keep fighting. And I've always been that way, you know. So I started going to AA. That's how I ended up in AA. I was trying to win my wife back. End of story.
Great story, man.
But
So a year ago, you said, you know what, wife, I love you. I'm gonna try something different. And went to an AA meeting. What was your first meeting?
my first meeting, I went to it was a beginner's mind. It was a traditional meeting. And I think it was out of Boston. It was on Zoom. And I started going to that. And I was just like, oh, okay. This is we'll just do this and we'll win her back.
Right. Yeah. So it was, you were kind of thinking like, yeah, spend a couple of months in AA and that'll do the trick. I'll toss her a couple of coins and.
Yeah. That was the mindset at the time. That was, so I, hopped in there and I started doing that, but right there and then I'm just like, I was already getting frustrated because I'm not a religious person. I don't know what I believe in. I don't know if there's something out there or anything like that. So I was kind of getting irritated because, they're sitting here telling me, I've got to have someone whisk all my problems away. I gotta believe in a higher power and all that. And I kept trying to wrap my mind around all this. I was still trying to make it work. I was trying to listen. I was trying to benefit from it. Just so when the manipulation, when I wanted to use the manipulation, I'd have it there, and I'm just like, and I can't remember, but it was some reason I ended up started looking in other meetings after going into that room. And still just having, I'll do this, I'll get my family back, all those thoughts. And I ended up finding this group called Oh My God. And I went in there, and then it was like all this like bells and whistles, and I'm like, okay, what is this? And Oh My God is our mostly agnostic group of drunks. And I'm like, agnostic? I know what that word means. You might believe, you might not, you don't know. It's kind of like, I'm like, oh, okay. So I pop in there and I'm listening to this. And at these points I wasn't really sharing. I was just going in and listening. And I'm something just, I don't know. I can't remember if it's something someone said, but I just opened up. I started sharing at this meeting, and oh my God, I started like, it's like everything just, someone pulled a string and I unraveled. And I mean, I'm 6'1". I'm a 300-pound man. I look like some people call me a Viking or Thor or something. You know, and I fell apart, and I'm like sharing, and I've got snot running out of my nose and tears, and just letting it out. And you know,
that one chair had that profound impact on you, huh?
yeah, well, it made me want to share, and just from there, it was, I don't know. I shared, then someone heard my share, then they reached out to me, and they told me to call them, and I'm like, why am I going to call them? I ended up calling this person, and we started talking about like my background and stuff like that, and I don't know. He could relate to, like, he could see me for who I was. I'm this big man in there crying, and I try to have this big tough guy appearance, and whatever else you want to put with it, and he knows inside I've at the time I can't remember the exact words, but like I've got a big heart or something along the lines of that, and we just started I started talking about how I was in the Army and how I was a cop, and he was able to phrase this to me basically: you're in early sobriety, your brain's all fucked up. It's trying to rewire yourself in, and you've got all this other shit going on top of that, and that's not helping. Right now, you need to focus on retraining yourself. You trained when you're in the military, you trained when you were a cop. Now you got to train yourself to be sober. I go, and I'm like, well, I'm fucking sober now. No. It's not. No, it's, you got to train yourself. It took me a minute to grasp what that meant. Because I didn't realize what white knuckling was and dry drunk and all this other stuff was at the time. I'm like, I'm not drinking. I'm not doing anything. I'm sober. But I'm not really sober to find out after the fact. I'm still a hot mess. So that's when I really started getting involved with AA, was right there.
This guy, he sponsored you for a while, I suppose. Is that right?
No.
Oh no, he's just a recovery partner.
Yeah, he was a recovery. He was there, a recovery partner, I guess. I guess that's a good way to put it. I talked to him. I talked to him, then I ended up, a couple other people, I reached out to, because there's points I was like going to work. I'd be sitting at my desk, and I like just start breaking out crying for no reason. Well, it's no reason. I mean, my mind was a hot mess, and so I just started making these phone calls, and I was trying to work with this guy I met in that beginner's mind, and he just kept trying to tell me to pray, and I need to meditate, and all this. And I said, I tried meditating when I did martial arts back in the day, and that didn't. I couldn't even do that. I'm like, I can't. And praying to me is just like, it makes me feel like I'm trying to talk to something and it's not going to talk back. It was hard for me to wrap my mind around. But I ended up using the phone, then someone goes, hey, I know, and I just explain this stuff. This is how my mind works. And they go, well, we know, I know so-and-so, this person has a 6-step program. And I'm like, oh, 6-step program. I thought AA was 12 steps. I'm like, okay. Yeah. I'll talk to him. And, it probably wasn't a half hour. I got another text message with, he's my sponsor now and was my sponsor after then. I ended up calling him as soon as I got his number. And that was, I think the first person that I tried working with, it was, I tried, but I don't count that as a sponsor. It was a temporary person to assist me.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's you're not the only one who's gone through more than one person when they're starting to work with somebody. Yeah. So I think a lot of people, and when they're new to recovery, don't realize that. They feel trapped when it comes to recovery partners or people who are trying to help them. And I think your example of not going with the wrong fit is a great story that people need to hear. So thanks for sharing that. You started this whole podcast, many paths to recovery, and
it's sobriety.
What's that?
Sobriety. I probably do need to change it to recovery because
many paths to sobriety.
Yeah.
I think. Excuse me for wrecking the name. I think the name's great as it is.
Yeah.
What inspired you to do that? And if you don't mind, maybe sharing a little bit of the path that you chose.
Man. You always keep hearing about service work. Do service work. Service keeps you sober. And,
yeah, tell me about it.
The other meeting I started going to was a Saturday meeting called Mini Pass. And originally it was like 5 people in that room. And, I'm like, yeah, I dig this. And, it wasn't all set on one thing. It was just like we're going in there talking and everyone's, just discussing on what they're doing to stay sober. But I started working the Reason Recovery 6 steps with my sponsor. And, well, you need to do service work. You need to do this. And I'm just like, man, I'm making excuses and this. I'm like, I'm going to start a podcast. I started having this idea. I'm like, I'm going to start a podcast. And then I could talk to alcoholics all the time. And then I could put this out everywhere. And this will help other people. And there, I did service. Because, I usually have a decent enough schedule to where, well, for a while there I didn't, but now it's back to where it's hit or miss. But I don't like taking commitments if I can't fulfill them, and I like to make sure I do what I say, and I'm gonna do, and I'm giving chips and stuff like that, and it just wasn't enough because I started realizing earlier that talking to another alcoholic is how this works. Talking to someone that has the same problem as me is how this works. And doing that and working the steps I took, the Reading Recovery 6 Steps, which is basically just you're taking, it's a combination of the 12 steps, but you're taking all the religious text out of it, and the God word, and higher power, and spiritual awakening. I don't know, because to me, I don't spirit, soul, all that stuff. It rings to me, but it's something I can't see. It's something I don't know. It's hard for, that's why this was, I was attracted to it. And I did these, and because when it was like, boom, doing my personal inventory and getting all that stuff, that was like a big weight lifted off my chest. And this was still during the time she still wanted a divorce, but I was actually starting to feel better because I was doing this. And I could tell when I wasn't staying 100% engaged and talking to other alcoholics, I'd start feeling a little bit wonky, and I'd start making phone calls. Well, it was suggested to me to start making phone calls again, and I was doing that. I was making sure I was doing it every day, regardless if I had something to say or not. So that's why I started to do this. That way I was making phone calls and having these one-on-one conversations for myself with another alcoholic and getting to hear their story. Then I was getting introduced to people that didn't even want to share their story. And I'm starting to talk to them one-on-one and go, hey, it doesn't matter if you think your story is boring or whatever. This might save someone's life. That's why I'm doing this. It's alcoholics talking to other alcoholics.
That turning point when you stopped doing it primarily to save your marriage and started doing it for yourself and for others. In addition to that, when did that happen for you exactly? Can you put your finger on the moment that happened?
Well, there's two different points. There's two different points for that, because the podcast was second. I thought I roped in my wife to say, give me a timeline. I was like, maybe we can just live together or whatever. I don't want to be away from the kids and just all this other stuff. And still manipulation, still all this and all that other shit. And it was still just, at this point I did have a sponsor, but I still was focusing on just getting her back. But I was still having these very, very mania moments and whatever. But anyways, she's like, oh yeah. She started to just pretty much tell me what I wanted to hear. So I'd shut the fuck up. And she's like, I'll give you time and we do this. And then I don't know what it was, but it wasn't even like 2 days later, and I was talking to my therapist and all this, and I'm just like, oh yeah, she's giving me this opportunity and all this. And one morning I was getting ready for work, and I can't even remember what it was about, but like I went into this. I don't even know how to explain it, but it was just like one of those things I got like hyper focused on, and it was just like where my true colors showed up, and she like saw through it. And then I could tell she was upset. And then I'm like blowing her phone up while she's driving to work and I'm driving to work. And she's like, no, I can't do this anymore. And I'm just like, you lied to me and all this, and I'm doing my best. And I finally, I called my sponsor and I told him what was going on, and I'm just he goes, Raymond, you need to start focusing on your sobriety first, or nothing's ever going to work for you. And I'm like, well, I am. He goes, no, you're not. You're trying to do this and save your marriage, but if you don't focus on your sobriety first, it's not going to work. And I shut. What's that phrase? I at that time took the cotton out of my ears and put it in my mouth, and I just started doing what he told me to do. You know, I thought I was doing everything I was doing, but apparently, I needed to be on the right course. And because it just seemed, because everything else I was doing at the time, it was just, I was just doing actions and just doing stuff just to appease her and to put the show on. It was kind of like putting glitter on a turd. And that's probably the easiest way to phrase it, to be honest to me right now. It was like I was a turd for a while, and at that point in time, I was just trying to put glitter on it, and I needed to.
It sounds like you were lucky enough to have both a life partner and a sponsor, awesome enough to call you out on your shit.
Yeah. And and it was just because I trusted him. I trusted him. He, he'll be going on 37 years of sobriety next June. And I was there when he got his 36 year, well, not in person, but on Zoom. I saw him take, I was in like a bunch of these meetings watching him take cakes. And I'm like, man. But and at first, talking to him, I'm just like, man, this guy's a fucking guru. And, no, he's just been sober for 36 years, and he's been in the program ever since. So he knows what what needs to be done. So that's when that was the big turning point for that. The second turning point for the podcast was where I really started focusing was when I had my sponsor on the show, and he asked me why I started the show, and he called me out on my bullshit, and he's like, basically I was doing it for myself, and so I'm like, no, I'm not. I can't remember if it was all ended up being on an episode or whatnot. I'm gonna have to go back and listen, but it's he for a lot of people that I always thought I was getting shit by. I sure couldn't get it past him, and I sure couldn't get it past my wife. I'll tell you that much. But that was the turning point there. And I think right about that time I started going and doing more service work and some online meetings and stuff like that as well. And just really hitting it even harder. And
Thanks, man.
yeah.
Thanks. That's, so interesting. I was lucky too, not to talk too much about myself, but I was also lucky to find a sponsor that I could relate to, who's an old hippie. So he spoke my language. I'm from Oregon and if there wasn't the scent of patchouli in the house was not clean. So, so a hippie did me just perfect.
Yeah.
And he also had a bunch of time in it as well. So yeah, finding someone you can talk to, thanks, Raymond.
Yeah, thank you.
So, this podcast that you've done, many paths to sobriety. I've listened to several episodes. I know several of our friends have listened to a bunch of episodes, and it leads you down definitely a lot of different possible ways to personally get sober. Is there any one thing besides service work that you have found really keeps you on track?
And the most single thing right now is just, holding myself accountable and keeping my side of the street clean. Not getting involved with other people's shit and worrying about other people's shit. And, but like routine wise is, I don't know if it's a single thing. I just continue to just remember that we're not perfect, and this is a long game. This is progress and not perfection. And I fuck up. All I can do is try to be better the next day, and that's the main thing. Is if I just try to do better each day. And not let what I can't control drive me back into madness and back into to a pity party or whatever you want to call it. It's a combination. I can't just say one thing because I think it all ties together. I believe the biggest thing is talking to other alcoholics. I do believe that.
What's your relationship like now with your wife and kids?
Well, the relationship's amazing, After I really put myself into this, she ended up unfiling the divorce. And, we're planning our 10-year wedding anniversary, which is next May. And I try to not yell at my kids and stuff like that, and just try to talk to them and explain things when it's wrong. I believe it's a better relationship, but it's complex because it's like I have girls and I can't ever I can never If I could figure out women and their thoughts and the way they think, I'd be like a billionaire. This would be a whole different podcast. It's but I do feel it's a lot different. It's a lot different than what it was, because I'm trying to teach from what I've learned, because a lot of the things I've learned staying with the program is it applies to a lot of things in life, and it's being kinder, gentler, all that shit. Well, it's not shit. I'm sorry, I keep saying that stuff. It's the stuff in Alcoholics Anonymous and these programs. It's not shit. I'm not trying to. I just stuff rolls out of my mouth, and I just say it, and I don't mean it in a derogatory way, but it applies to a lot of things, and I started realizing that, and it's amazing. It's amazing. I could come home and put my kids to bed every night, and I get to I'm spending time with them. I'm doing things with them. I'm putting them first. I mean, there's days I do want to go play a video game and stuff like that, and just forget about shit and get past the day. But I'm not drinking. I mean, there's some things I gotta escape or whatever, but I'm more open about it, and I'm able to explain why I'm feeling the way. And this wasn't an overnight thing either, because I just started figuring this out probably about like a month, 2 months ago, of like really being able to explain to my wife what's really going on in my head, because I know there's still some frustrations because of some of my mannerisms, because it's kind of hard to change. I don't know if I don't think I'd call it a defect. I don't know if mannerisms are a personal defect. I'm not a proctologist or anything. I don't know how the brain works. I know defects are like self-gratifying behaviors and stuff like that, but I like mannerisms, tics. It's not really tics, but just, sighing. I don't know.
Yeah, reactive behaviors, I think, is what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I don't know. Those are defect. I don't know. But
no, they're just reactive behaviors. There's nothing, in my opinion, nothing particularly wrong about them unless you want to change them. But we can just and changing things, always takes time. The law of momentum, as I call it. The more you do something, the easier it is to do something. The more you don't, the easier it is to not.
Yeah, but I'm able to explain what's going on in my head clearly, and like it's kind of like I try to explain. I don't know if it's anxiety or if it little bouts of mania, or because when I was a kid, I had ADD. You down with ADD? Yeah, me. I was problematic with it, and that's why I'm always jumping hobbies or trying to learn something and staying busy. But it's just like my brain is always constantly, but now it's not. I'm not hiding it behind substances. But it's crazy because now it's like I could deal with this without using drugs or alcohol. and I can fix my solutions on my own and work it out with other alcoholics. And hey, I could talk to my wife before I do something stupid or before I piss her off too. And stuff like that, you know, we've actually, you know, sat down and done a budget together. I'm like, and I want to kill her by the time we're done with it. And, but I mean, it's stuff like that. And the farther I get into this, I start figuring out new stuff that's better and how to communicate better. And, you know, but I got to make sure when this shit comes up, I talk to another alcoholic or I talk to my sponsor, or because believe it or not, as much as we don't like to admit it, usually our first thought's the wrong thought.
I believe you, brother.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. You know, thanks for sharing your journey with us. You know, I feel that sharing is service, whether it's on a Zoom meeting, whether it's in a personal meeting, or whether it's in a podcast forum such as this. And, you know, you laying it all out for us is a huge service. So thanks for doing it.
Well, it's an honor. And it's been an honor to have you and part of my recovery. I've told you that before. And I'm trying to find a time. I'm trying to figure out the format, but I'm wanting to start another. I want to start like another recovery website, like how AA Agnostica did, and like a collaborative, and find people like submit stuff and just kind of like tie it all together. That's kind of what's in the works in my mind right now.
That's what's in the future.
Yeah, with this. So
well, it's my honor to participate in anything cool that you've got your hands in, man. I've loved hanging out with you. I've loved, you know, being part of your journey. You know, thanks for including me in it.
Yeah. And yeah. And every time I meet other stoic alcoholics, I think of you first.
Stoicism.
Yeah.
I could talk about Stoicism all day. If you want to hear about my views on Stoicism, please listen to Raymond's podcast.
I can't.
With Joseph W.
Yeah, I can't remember what was that episode 2? Episode 3?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's on there.
Yeah. So
I'll relink it in the show notes. But yeah, you've always, anytime I see you hosting or taking part in like coffee talk and stuff like that, I know it's going to be a good meeting. You always have a good unbiased insight, and it's always positive.
Thanks, brother. Remember, you're talking to another alcoholic, and feeding my ego can be hugely dangerous.
Well, you know, that's one of my defects.
Love you, brother.
I'm working on it. Love you, man.